Have you ever looked at a woman and thought, she's strong, independent, beautiful, yet something tells you deep down, she has vulnerabilities no one sees? Here's the truth. Every woman, no matter how confident she appears, has weaknesses, not because she's flawed, but because she's human. And if you're a man who seeks understanding, power, and connection, then knowing these 9 hidden female weaknesses will completely change how you deal with women, from attraction to relationships to emotional mastery. But be warned, what you're about to learn isn't for manipulation. It's for wisdom. Inspired by the ancient teachings of Marcus Aurelius, this video reveals the Stoic secrets to understanding female psychology. So before we dive in, subscribe to the channel for more powerful Stoic content. Like this video to support the message, and make sure you watch till the end, because these 9 truths will give you an edge in love, confidence, and emotional control you've never had before. Let's begin. Let me tell you about Julian. Julian wasn't flashy. He didn't drive a sports car, no designer clothes, but he had something most men didn't: presence. He had a quiet calm, a deep awareness, a powerful sense of self that pulled people in. One day he met Sarah, a woman known for being out of everyone's league. She had a wall around her heart and didn't let anyone in easily. Most men tried to impress her. Julian did the opposite. He listened, observed, moved like a Stoic, and as he did, he began to notice the things about her that others missed. Not her smile, not her body, but the cracks in her armor, her subtle insecurities, her emotional blind spots, her hidden longings, and that changed everything. Because once Julian understood her weaknesses, he stopped being another man trying to win her over, and became the man she couldn't stop thinking about. That's what we're going to unlock today. Let's uncover the 9 female weaknesses men must know through the lens of Stoic wisdom and the quiet power of Marcus Aurelius. 1. Her need for emotional leadership. Have you ever been in love with a woman who seemed like a storm and sunshine wrapped into one? One moment she's laughing uncontrollably at something stupid you said. The next she's silent, staring out the window, trapped in thoughts you can't reach. That was Sarah. And for Julian, loving her was like trying to hold fire without getting burned. Now let me ask you something, be honest. Have you ever loved a woman so deeply that her moods could shake your peace? Have you ever felt confused? Because one minute she wanted to be close, and the next she pushed you away for no reason. Julian went through that too. And one night everything changed. They were driving back from dinner. Music was low. City lights danced on her face. She looked beautiful, but she was distant. He asked, "What's wrong?" She said, "Nothing." But it was the kind of nothing that meant everything. Now here's the part where most men make the mistake. They start digging, over-explaining, getting emotional, trying to fix something they don't understand. But Julian remembered something he'd read in Meditations by Marcus Aurelius. If it is not right, do not do it. If it is not true, do not say it. So instead of reacting, he slowed down. He turned off the music, pulled the car over, and said quietly, "I won't fight you, but I also won't leave you alone in this." Silence. Then, for the first time, she cried. Not tears of pain, but of relief. Because here's what most men don't realize. A woman doesn't always need answers. She needs emotional leadership. Not dominance. Not control. But the strength of a man who doesn't collapse when she's overwhelmed. Julian didn't beg for clarity. He didn't match her emotions. He stayed steady, calm, and fully present. And that became the turning point in their love. So ask yourself, when the woman you care about breaks down, can you hold her with your peace instead of your panic? Can you be the container for her chaos without drowning in it? Because that's what she's looking for. Not a man with all the right words, but one with the right energy. Women fall in love with men who don't get emotionally hijacked, not because they're cold, but because they are grounded. So if you've ever felt confused by a woman's emotional roller coaster, remember, it's not your job to fix her storm. Your power is in being the anchor in it. That's what Julian became for Sarah, and that's why she never looked at another man the same way again. Now I want to ask you something. Do you remember the last time a woman leaned into you, not for your body, but for your stability? 2. Her desire to be understood without asking. Have you ever looked into her eyes and known something was wrong, but when you asked, she said, "I'm fine." But you knew she wasn't. Let me take you back to a moment in Julian's love story, one that changed everything. It was a rainy evening. the kind that softens even the hardest memories. Julian and Sarah were sitting on the balcony of his apartment. No words, just the sound of the storm and the soft clinking of her coffee spoon in the mug. She looked distant. Her body was there, but her soul was far away. Now, what would you do? Would you push her? Ask questions? Would you say, "Why are you being so quiet?" Or "Talk to me"? Most men do. Julian didn't. Because Julian had learned something powerful, not from modern dating coaches, but from Marcus Aurelius, who once wrote, "Waste no more time arguing what a good man should be one." So Julian didn't try to fix her. He didn't demand answers. He read the silence. Instead, he stood up, went inside, lit a candle, came back, and placed a small blanket over her shoulders. No words. She looked at him, tears forming in her eyes, and softly whispered, "Thank you for not making me talk." That was the moment she trusted him. Not because of anything he said, but because he understood her without being told. See, this is one of a woman's most tender weaknesses. She wants you to notice the unsaid, to feel the shift in her energy, to be tuned in not to her words but to her heart. Why? Because most of her life she's had to explain herself, to friends, to family, to men who only listened to her words, not her soul. And when a man finally appears, who can look at her and know what she's feeling before she says a thing, she falls deeply. So I want to ask you something, and be honest. Have you ever made a woman feel seen without her saying a single word? Have you ever held space for her silence and made her feel safe in it? Because that is where true intimacy begins. Julian didn't have magic. He wasn't reading her mind. He was simply present, aware, observant. He watched her body language, noticed her breathing, the way she avoided eye contact. And instead of asking her to explain herself, he chose to show that he cared. That's what Stoic men do. They don't chase words. They chase understanding. Because when a woman feels you understand her without being asked, she'll open doors in her soul that no one else could ever reach. So ask yourself, can you love her with your silence? Can you protect her with your presence? Because if you can, she'll never forget the man who finally heard her without a single sound. And that is what separates ordinary lovers from unforgettable ones. 3. Her vulnerability to male indifference. Have you ever seen a woman who seemed completely unshakable until the man she wanted didn't seem to care? It's strange, isn't it? She gets compliments every day. She has men in her DMs chasing, craving, begging. But the moment she meets a man who stays calm, unmoved, and emotionally untouchable, she starts to crumble. That's what happened with Sarah. She had always been in control. Men chased her like moths to a flame. But Julian? He didn't chase. He didn't flinch. He didn't need her attention to feel like a man. And that confused her. One evening at a friend's party, Sarah caught Julian talking to another woman. Nothing inappropriate, just light conversation and laughter. But what broke her wasn't jealousy. It was how Julian walked away from that interaction like it meant nothing. He didn't try to explain. He didn't seek validation. He wasn't cold, but he was completely indifferent. Later that night, Sarah texted him, "Do you even care?" Julian paused, took a deep breath, then replied with a line that hit her deeper than any love letter ever could. "I care about truth, peace, and self-respect. If anything threatens those, I step back, not because I don't care, but because I value what I carry." That was it, and that moment broke Sarah's emotional rhythm, because for the first time, she wasn't in control. You see, this is one of a woman's deepest, most hidden weaknesses. She is incredibly vulnerable to a man who does not seek her approval. Why? Because most men either worship her or resent her. But few can remain centered, unbothered, and focused on their inner world. Marcus Aurelius said it best. "Choose not to be harmed, and you won't feel harmed." Julian chose this path. He didn't play games. He just lived in a space of quiet confidence. He didn't react to every emotion. He responded from self-command, and that made him unforgettable. So let me ask you, have you ever seen a woman act cold or distant just to get a reaction out of you? Have you ever stayed calm when she expected you to chase? If so, you've tasted real power. But be careful. Indifference is not about punishment. It's about boundaries. It's not about making her feel small. It's about showing that you're already full. A woman will test a man's emotional detachment not to destroy him, but to see if he loses himself. When she sees he doesn't, That's when she begins to submit emotionally, not out of weakness, but out of admiration. Because in a world full of men who try too hard to be noticed, she's secretly waiting for the one who doesn't need to be. And that, my brother, is the quiet fire of Stoic attraction, for her craving for a man's mission. Have you ever seen a woman slowly lose interest in a man she once adored? Even though he gave her his time, his love, his attention? Let me tell you a truth most men don't realize until it's too late. A woman doesn't want to be your mission. She wants to witness your mission. Julian learned this the hard way. When he first met Sarah, he was fully alive, building his business, working out daily, reading, learning, growing. He had a spark, a rhythm, a drive. She saw him as untouchable, yet grounded, focused, yet warm. He made time for her, but his world didn't revolve around her, and that mystery kept her drawn to him like gravity. But as their relationship grew, he started letting go of his path. He skipped the gym to spend more time with her, canceled meetings to be available, watched endless shows just to be close. At first she smiled, then she got quiet, distant, until one day she told him, "You used to lead your life. Now it feels like you're just waiting for me." That hit Julian hard. He thought giving her more would make her feel more loved. But in trying to center her, he lost the very edge that made her fall in love. Here's what most men don't understand. A woman doesn't fall for the man who gives her everything. She falls for the man who gives his life meaning and lets her witness it. Why? Because deep down, a woman's hidden craving is to belong to something bigger than herself. And when she sees a man walking his path with fire and discipline, she wants to walk beside him, not in front, not pulling him back. Beside him, following a man with direction. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "A man's worth is no greater than the worth of his ambitions." If you give up your ambition for her, you're not showing love. You're abandoning your masculine core. Sarah didn't want to be Julian's purpose. She wanted to support it. She wanted to watch him sweat, struggle, grow, build something great, and know that she had the privilege of being next to that energy. So let me ask you honestly, have you ever sacrificed your mission to make her feel more secure? And if you did she start pulling away even when you gave her more? If yes, now you know why. A man with purpose is the most intoxicating force to a woman, because that's the man she can trust to lead his life, her heart, and their future. When Julian realigned with his mission, everything changed. She started leaning in again. Not because he chased her, but because he chased himself. And that's what every woman is secretly hoping for. Not to be the center of your world, but to orbit a man whose world already has meaning. 5. Her need to feel chosen but not worshipped. Have you ever given your whole heart to a woman, treated her like a queen, made her the center of your world, and still, she pulled away? Julian did. In fact, the moment he put Sarah on a pedestal, she began slipping through his fingers. You see, in the early days, Julian was strong, grounded, focused. Sarah admired him for his discipline, his quiet confidence. She didn't just like him, she respected him. But as their connection grew, Julian started shifting. He began prioritizing her over his goals. He complimented her constantly, afraid she'd forget her value. He made her the sun and himself the satellite. What started as love slowly turned into worship, and Sarah could feel it. One night after they had dinner at her favorite place, he reached across the table, looked into her eyes and said, "I don't know what I'd do without you." She smiled, but deep inside something cracked. That's when Julian noticed the shift. Less affection, fewer texts, less energy. He was giving her everything. So why was she fading? Because of a truth very few men ever understand. A woman wants to feel chosen, not idolized. She wants to feel desired by a man who could walk away, but doesn't. She doesn't want to be the air you breathe. She wants to feel like the one you chose to breathe beside. As Marcus Aurelius once said, the best revenge is to be unlike him who performed the injury. In other words, don't become the man who loses himself to keep her. The more Julian poured into Sarah, the more she drifted. Until one day, during a quiet moment, she said, "Julian, when we met, you had this fire in your eyes. Now it feels like I've become your fire." That hit him like a train. He thought his devotion would secure her, but it suffocated the attraction. Because when a man worships a woman, he unconsciously tells her, "You are more valuable than me," and that throws the balance off. What did Julian do? He stepped back, returned to his mission. His friends, his rhythm, not to punish her, but to reclaim his center. And as he did, something wild happened. She came back. Not because he begged, not because he chased, but because he became the man she initially fell for again. So let me ask you this, brother. Have you ever made a woman feel like she was your world, and then watched her slip away? Did you think more love would fix it, only to find that it made things worse? Here's the truth. A woman wants to feel special, not sacred. She wants to feel wanted, not worshipped. The moment she becomes your religion, you stop being her man. She doesn't want a follower. She wants a leader, with a full life, strong values, and enough self-worth to say, I choose you, but I'll never need to lose myself to keep you. 6. Her fragile relationship with time. Have you ever looked at a woman and seen the way she smiles, but underneath that smile you sense something is chasing her? That something is time. Julian didn't understand it at first. He and Sarah were lying on the rooftop one night watching the stars. She was quiet, too quiet, her fingers tracing invisible shapes on his chest. He thought it was just one of her moods. But then she said something that hit differently. Do you ever think about how fast everything's moving? Like, I blink and another year's gone. He shrugged. Time doesn't scare me. But she didn't smile, because time hits women differently than it hits men. You see, while men are taught to build with time, women often feel like they're running out of it. Biological clocks, pressure to marry, pressure to have kids, stay youthful, be beautiful, keep it together. Even when a woman seems confident and carefree inside, she may be quietly counting down clocks you don't even hear ticking. That's her hidden weakness, not because she's weak, but because the world puts a different weight on her shoulders. Julian began to see it more clearly. Sarah was only 28, but she felt the panic of turning 30. Her friends were settling down. Social media was full of engagements, and her parents were asking when she'd get serious. Julian, he had time. She had expectations. And the more he brushed it off, the more distance she created. That's when he came across a quote from Marcus Aurelius that changed his thinking. You could leave life right now. Let that determine what you do, say, and think. Julian realized it wasn't about rushing into marriage. It was about presence, respect, reassurance. So one night, instead of avoiding the topic, he looked at her and said, I know time feels heavier on you than it does on me. I see it now. But I'm not here to waste it, I'm here to make it meaningful. Tears, not dramatic ones, quiet, grateful ones. Because here's what most men don't realize. She's not asking you to fix time. She's asking you to understand how it feels for her. That's what makes you stand out. Not by rushing the relationship. Not by mocking her fears. But by showing her, I see the pressure you're under, and I won't add to it. So let me ask you, have you ever dismissed a woman's fear of time without realizing how deep it runs? Have you ever told her to relax when what she really needed was to be heard? The Stoic man doesn't just live in the moment, he respects the moment. He understands the unseen burdens others carry. When you make a woman feel safe inside the timeline she's trapped in, she'll trust you in ways no man has ever earned. Because time may be her fear, but you can be her peace inside of it. 7. Her deep fear of being abandoned. Have you ever been with a woman who seemed so confident, so in control, but deep down you felt she was always waiting for you to leave? Julian noticed it early on with Sarah. She was stunning, smart, independent. But there were moments, small quiet moments, where she seemed unsure, not of herself but of him. She'd ask strange questions like, would you still care if I wasn't this beautiful? Or, if one day I just disappeared, would you look for me? At first, Julian brushed it off. He thought, why would someone like her ever feel insecure about being left? But then one night during a small argument, she blurted out, everyone leaves, so don't pretend you won't. And just like that, the armor cracked. That's when Julian realized, behind her strong exterior lived something fragile, a deep, almost primal fear of being abandoned. And it wasn't because of him. It was older, deeper, left behind by a father who never stayed, by past lovers who disappeared when she opened up, by friendships that only lasted as long as she was perfect. And so she carried this quiet wound, one that whispered, don't get too close or you'll get hurt again. Julian could have responded with frustration. He could have said, I'm not like them. But instead he remembered a line from Marcus Aurelius. You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength. So Julian didn't try to control her pain. He didn't offer her guarantees. He simply offered his truth. He looked her in the eyes and said, If I ever leave, it'll be because I'm no longer being honest. But I promise you this, I will never disappear without explaining why. That calmed her. Not because it was romantic, but because it was real. Because here's what every man must understand. A woman's fear isn't just about being left, it's about being left without closure. It's not the end that breaks her. It's the silence, the vanishing, the unanswered questions she's left to wrestle with at 2 a.m. So let me ask you, brother, have you ever pulled away emotionally without saying it? Have you ever gone silent thinking it was easier, cleaner? Women remember that forever. Julian didn't promise forever. He didn't sell fairy tales. He simply showed up with consistency and clarity. That's what built trust, because Stoic men don't offer perfect love. They offer present love. And when a woman finally meets a man who won't disappear when things get messy, she stops bracing for loss. She starts believing in presence. That's when her walls come down. And that's when real intimacy begins. Because at the heart of every strong woman is a little girl still hoping someone will finally stay. 8. Her confusion between desire and love. Have you ever looked at a woman and wondered, does she love me or just desire me? And have you ever felt the pain of giving your heart only to realize she was only drawn to your fire, not the man holding it? Julian did. In the early days with Sarah, everything burned. The chemistry was unreal. The stolen glances, the playful arguments, the kisses that felt like the world was spinning. It was desire, pure raw electric. And Julian, like most men, mistook that heat for love. He believed that if the passion was strong, the connection must be deeper. He believed her touch meant permanence. But then, things changed. The fire cooled. The calls became less frequent. And when he looked in her eyes, he no longer saw hunger. He saw hesitation. One night, Julian asked, "Do you still love me?" Sarah looked down, took a breath, and said, "I think. I was in love with how you made me feel, not with who you are." Those words shattered him. But in the silence that followed, Julian remembered a line from Marcus Aurelius. "The happiness of your life depends upon the quality of your thoughts." He sat with that thought, replayed everything, and then he saw it. She desired him because of the way he carried himself, the mystery, the power, the passion. But when he started to soften too quickly, to expose his entire soul too soon, the mystery faded, and with it her desire. That's when he understood something powerful. Many women confuse desire and love. Desire is about the unknown, the chase, the polarity. Love is about familiarity, safety, vulnerability. And here's her hidden weakness. She often wants both, but doesn't know how to hold both at once. Sarah craved the wild, passionate Julian who pulled her in with his silence. But she also said she wanted closeness, emotional depth, long talks. Yet when Julian gave her all of that, without any mystery left, she felt safe, but no longer pulled. So what did Julian do? He rebalanced. He stopped over-explaining his feelings. He returned to his inner world, his mission, his purpose. He became emotionally available, but not emotionally exposed. And slowly, she came back. Not because he manipulated her, but because he restored the contrast she was craving. So let me ask you, have you ever given your whole heart too quickly, hoping that love would grow only to find her backing away? Have you ever made her feel safe and watched her lose desire in that very safety? Here's the Stoic truth. Love and desire can coexist, but only when a man keeps a piece of himself reserved, not hidden, just sacred. Because a woman doesn't want to own all of you. She wants to reach for parts of you that she can never fully tame. And when you give her that dance between closeness and distance, she stops confusing love with lust and starts craving all of you. 9. Her need for you to lead yourself. Have you ever waited for a woman to decide where the relationship was going, instead of leading it yourself? Julian did. There was a time, about 7 months into his relationship with Sarah, where things felt off. They were still close, still intimate, still talking, but something was missing. She started asking little questions, casually at first. "So, where do you see this going? What do you want from all of this? Are you happy?" At first, Julian thought she was just being curious, but over time he realized she wasn't looking for answers. She was looking for direction, not just in the relationship, in him. Because here's a truth many men miss. A woman doesn't want to steer your ship. She wants to know you already have a map. And in that moment, Julian realized he'd been drifting. No more morning routines. No clear goals. No fire, no structure, no leadership. Not over her, but over himself. That's when he found an old quote from Marcus Aurelius that hit him like lightning. A man's worth is no greater than the worth of his ambitions. Julian had stopped leading himself, and the moment he did, Sarah started feeling unsafe. Not unsafe in the physical sense, but emotionally. Because when a man can't lead himself, how can she trust him to hold space for her? Sarah didn't want to take control. She wanted to relax into his direction. She wanted to feel that if life went sideways, he'd know how to stand. That's her hidden weakness. She may be strong, but she's exhausted from leading everything. She's secretly praying you'll take the wheel of your own life. So Julian stepped up. He started waking up early again, reading, writing, training. He reconnected with his mission, stopped asking her for emotional clarity, and began providing it for himself. He didn't announce it. He lived it. And something shifted. Sarah started leaning into him again. She laughed more, touched him more. She trusted him not because he told her to, but because he walked like a man who trusted himself. So let me ask you, brother, are you waiting for her to lead the way? Or are you taking control of your habits, your mindset, your path? Because here's what every woman secretly desires. Not a man who dominates her, but a man who has disciplined himself so deeply that she can follow his energy without question. A man who doesn't need permission to rise. A man who doesn't beg to be chosen because he's already chosen himself. That's what Julian became. Not her leader, but a man whose self-leadership made her feel safe to soften, trust, and stay. And that's what separates men who are remembered from the ones who are replaced. Closing reflection. So what do these 9 weaknesses really reveal? That women, despite their strength, are drawn to men who live with intention. Men who are emotionally centered. Men who seek wisdom, not power. That's what Marcus Aurelius knew. And that's what Julian lived. In the end, Sarah didn't fall for Julian's looks, or money, or charm. She fell for his discipline, his presence, his stoic mind. And now it's your turn. Which of these 9 truths struck you the most? Leave a comment. Share this with a brother who needs to hear it. And remember, this isn't about control. It's about understanding. Because when you understand a woman's hidden weaknesses, you don't break her. You become the man she can finally trust. With that said, thanks for watching, and until next time.